Welcome back to Star or Shovelware, my name's Luke, and we're back once again with another review, which coincidentally is for a game called Back Again, an eerie third-person 3D platformer in which you dropped into a world of black, white and red and challenged to navigate across increasingly complex platform configurations as a disembodied voice coaxes you onwards and strange mannequins observe your every actions. To what end? Well, that's for you to find out. So let's get right on into this review, and be sure to like and subscribe if you enjoy my content and want to see more. So I won't give away too much in this review as the storyline in Back Again is all part of the experience, but on starting you're greeted by a narrator of sorts known only as the Guide, who appears to be watching your progression through this world and encouraging you to push onwards and not give up like the mannequins who populate it. Now there's not much in the way of lore or explanation as to what this place is or how you've wound up there, but as you progress the narrator offers you words of advice, at least in the beginning, as throughout the playthrough he transitions more towards questioning your existence and motivations for continuing. To be honest, it's not much so far as the storyline goes, with the final plot revealing something that I suspected all along, but it did keep me intrigued, and the voice acting is decent, with the narration performed by the developer himself, Dexter Manning, whom I believe amongst other things is actually a voice actor, video game developer, and actually runs his own YouTube channel with 175,000 subscribers, so presumably he's pretty well known. But overall the storyline helps to set the scene and add context to the gameplay, and all in all it's not bad stuff. So gameplay in Back Again is almost entirely focused around platforming, and throughout your time playing, you'll mainly be hopping from platform to platform and working your way through its surreal black and white landscape and trying not to fall into the abyss surrounding you. The game comes with two modes, the first being the standard story mode, which contains plenty of checkpoints and keeps count of how many times you fall, and the second a survival mode, which features an in-game timer challenging you to complete the game as fast as possible using only a single life. And I feel like the survival mode is the main meal with this one, with the story mode acting as a bit of a primer or practice to show you the ropes and get you used to the control scheme. Not that there's a lot to know in terms of controls though, you basically move around with the left thumbstick and jump with the B button, and that's about it. Now, the opening sections of the game keep things relatively simple and essentially introduce you to all the mechanics you'll find throughout your playthrough. And in these sections you'll encounter some fairly large platforms, some pretty simple jumps to make, and the aforementioned checkpoints which you'll respawn at if you happen to fall to your death. As you progress further into the game though, things start to get a little more tricky. Platforms will get smaller, jumps will get tighter, and you'll begin to encounter red coloured objects which generally act as obstructions, requiring you to steer around them whilst in the air or avoid them entirely. But the difficulty curve is relatively tame with this one, and I never felt like things became unfair or impossible to handle. Now in addition to these, there are also sections where the game's physics change, drastically increasing your movement speed or reducing the gravity, allowing you to perform huge leaps between distant platforms. And on a couple of occasions there are also some simple puzzles for you to solve, which basically involve lighting up a series of platforms to open the way forward. While none of these mechanics are particularly original or overly challenging, they do add a little bit of variety to the gameplay, and I personally would have liked to have seen more of these implemented, as well as perhaps a little more complexity and problem solving to the platforming. But for what they're worth, they do manage to keep things interesting, and alongside the deadly red blocks add a little extra challenge to the game, which is advertised as a hardcore platformer, but in all honesty it's really not that difficult thanks to the checkpoint system in the story mode, and if you're looking for a real challenge, I highly recommend playing the survival mode. Now, there's not an awful lot more to say about gameplay. Like I said, it's all about the platforming with a few simple mechanics thrown in there to mix things up a bit. But overall, I found it to be an enjoyable experience, and at times it kind of reminded me of those Half-Life jumping puzzle games or surf maps in the faster sections. With that said, it's also not a very long game, clocking in at around an hour or so playtime, with a survival mode adding a few extra hours for those wanting to set their own personal best or speedrun the game, and I really think it could have done with a hard mode to extend this playtime and add a little extra challenge, as there are achievements for you to unlock, but all but one of these are obtained for reaching checkpoints. Now, when it comes to issues, nothing major to report really. There were a couple of occasions when the game pulls a swift one on you, switching up an already established mechanic, which led to a couple of unfair deaths. But perhaps the biggest problem is that there's no on-screen marker to show where you're aiming, and this led to a couple of misaimed jumps and again a couple of deaths. But thankfully there are no game-breaking bugs or glitches to speak of with this one. All in all though, Back Again is a short but enjoyable platformer which keeps things simple, pushing you on through its surreal landscape with the questionable intentions of its narrator. Its controls are tight, meaning that any fall you take is entirely your own fault, and I'd say that it's reasonably priced for the gameplay on offer. So visually, Back Again is very minimalistic in its presentation. We get a black and white landscape to navigate with splashes of red used to emphasise important features and a scanline filter overlaid on top to add a bit of texture, and that's about it. But it works well to add an unsettling surreality to the world, and everyone loves a creepy mannequin, don't they? But thanks to this simple visual design, the game performs great on the Switch with no issues whatsoever when it comes to frame rate. On the audio side of things, again, pretty minimalistic. There are some simple sound effects, the quality of the voice acting is good, and the soundtrack consists of a couple of pretty chill beats to play along to, which change depending on the gameplay, but they sit nicely in the background and don't divert your attention away from the platforming. So all in all, not bad stuff on the audio and visual front. So when all's said and done, I think the best word to describe Back Again would be simplicity. You're given some very simple platforming mechanics to master, whose complexity and challenge is ramped up through smaller platforms to navigate, a few obstructions to avoid and tighter jumps to perform, minimalistic visuals and audio to enjoy, and a storyline which encourages you to play the game through to its conclusion. And while I have played other similar games which I've enjoyed more due to them being a bit more adventurous with the platforming mechanics and having more complex puzzle solving aspects to them, I still had a good time playing this one, and overall I thought the dev did a decent job with the game. What I will say though is that if you're shit at platformers, don't be put off with the description of this one being a hardcore 3D platformer, as its checkpoint system actually makes it pretty accessible. And on the flip side, if you're a platforming pro, don't go in expecting something to push your skills to the limits, as the one death survival mode is about as challenging as you're getting. But overall, the game offers a pleasant and reasonably challenging platform experience to keep you engaged and entertained for a couple of hours. And when it comes to my own personal rating, I'm going to be giving Back Again 3 out of 5 stars. It's not a bad little platformer for the price, and well worth a play in my opinion. And so that about wraps things up for this review of Back Again on the Nintendo Switch. If you're a fan of the platforming genre, is this one you're going to be picking up? Let me know down below, and drop your suggestions for other similar games, as I'm always looking to improve my shoddy jumping skills. With that said though, drop a like if this review helped you out, subscribe for more Switch reviews, and be sure to check out my Dollar Deals videos for other great budget Switch titles. And as always, thanks once again for watching, take care of yourselves, and game on.